We're going to do an overview of the autonomic nervous system in this video. So we're going to move on to the motor or efferent division of the peripheral nervous system in this chapter. And the efferent or motor division is going to be divided into the somatic nervous system, which is under mostly voluntary control because you're innervating the skeletal muscle. And then the autonomic nervous system is under mostly involuntary control, and that's because you're innervating the smooth muscle, cardiac muscle, and glands. And we're going to divide the autonomic nervous system into the sympathetic and parasympathetic divisions. And here's our overview of the nervous system. We've got the peripheral nervous system out here in light yellow. So we've got all of the sensory information coming in through the sensory or afferent neurons to the central nervous system, the brain and spinal cord. That's your integrating center. And the brain and spinal cord will decide if we need to do anything about that sensory information coming in. And if we do, then they will send signals out through the motor or efferent neurons, either through the somatic nervous system to the skeletal muscles, so maybe we need to jump out of the way, or maybe it'll send signals out through the efferent or motor neurons through the autonomic nervous system to either the sympathetic or parasympathetic neurons to innervate cardiac muscle, smooth muscle, or glands to affect those target organs to affect some change there. So our autonomic nervous system is going to be under mostly involuntary control, which just means that we don't have to think about it. So it just automatically does its thing, and we don't have to consciously think about, oh, it's time for our heart to beat, or, oh, we need to contract our stomach to move the food out. So that's really nice. We don't have to think about any of that. All right, so the effectors or target organs for the autonomic nervous system, they're going to be the cardiac muscle, smooth muscle, glands, and some of the glands are going to be some of the endocrine glands. So for example, like the adrenal medulla. And then some of the glands will be exocrine glands. So remember, those have the ducts. And so that would be, for example, like sweat glands, salivary glands. Those will be innervated by the autonomic nervous system. And then the last effector or target organ would be the adipose or fat. And that's just innervated by the sympathetic nervous system. And we'll talk about why that is a little bit later. Okay, and we're going to divide the autonomic nervous system into two divisions. We have sympathetic and parasympathetic divisions. And how we keep these two straight, the sympathetic division is known as fight or flight. So this will help you, like if a bear jumps out when you're hiking down the trail and you've got to either fight or run away from the bear, sympathetic nervous system is going to help you do that. And then the parasympathetic nervous system, that's known as rest and digest. So when the bear goes away and now you can rest, parasympathetic will take over. Or if you're eating a meal, digesting your food, that's parasympathetic helping you with that. We also have this concept of dual innervation with the autonomic nervous system, and this is really important to know. So what this means is that a lot of the effector organs are going to be innervated by both sympathetic and parasympathetic nerves. And the reason this happens is this will help us maintain homeostasis. So the reason this happens is because a lot of times the parasympathetic and sympathetic effects are antagonistic to each other, so they have the opposite effects. So for example, with heart rate, parasympathetic stimulation of the cardiac muscle will decrease heart rate, whereas sympathetic stimulation of the cardiac muscle will increase the heart rate. So they have the exact opposite effects. So depending on the conditions, you might need to increase the heart rate or decrease the heart rate, and so you can either stimulate the sympathetic nerves or parasympathetic nerves depending on what your body needs to be doing. There are some instances where sympathetic and parasympathetic don't have opposite or antagonistic effects of each other. So for example, in reproduction, so the way I remember this one is I remember point and shoot. So parasympathetic stimulation of the genitals will cause erection, so that's the point part. And then sympathetic stimulation causes the shoot part or ejaculation. So they actually don't have antagonistic effects in that area of the body, but most of the other areas they do have the opposite effects. So they actually do work together in reproduction. And there are certain areas of the body where we don't have dual innervation, where an effector is only innervated by one branch of the autonomic nervous system. So for example, the smooth muscle around your blood vessels is only innervated by sympathetic nerves. So parasympathetic doesn't innervate the smooth muscles. So if you want to constrict the blood vessels, you increase sympathetic stimulation to the smooth muscle. And if you want to vasodilate, you just decrease sympathetic stimulation. And so parasympathetic isn't involved in vasoconstriction or vasodilation. Here's a picture of dual innervation. So we've got the effector organs here in the middle. And then we've got on the left in green, we've got the sympathetic nerves. And then on the right in the blue, we've got parasympathetic nerves. And so you can see that most of these effector organs here are going to be innervated by both sympathetic and parasympathetic nerves. So that's dual innervation. So you can see the heart here, you can see the lungs, bladder. So you can see all of these, most of these organs are going to have dual innervation. Okay, so that's an important concept about the autonomic nervous system. Let's take a closer look at what happens when you stimulate your sympathetic nervous system. So this is going to give you your fight or flight response. This will help you respond to an emergency, any kind of stressful situation, and also you activate your sympathetic nervous system when you exercise. So the best way to remember this is I just think about if you're hiking down the trail and a bear jumps out at you. So you're either going to have to fight the bear or run away. So what's going to happen to your heart rate? So hopefully you said that your heart rate is going to increase because that's going to allow you to pump more blood around, get that blood to your muscles, and then you can make more ATP as you get more oxygen and nutrients to your muscles, and then you can run away or fight the bear. And then what's going to happen to your blood pressure? So hopefully you also said that's going to increase, because if you increase your blood pressure, that will also increase the blood flow to your muscles, and then that will also allow you to better run away or fight the bear. Okay, and then what about the bronchioles, your airways in your lungs? Are they going to bronchodilate or bronchoconstrict? So hopefully you said that they're going to dilate because you want to get more oxygen into your lungs, and then you can get more oxygen into your blood and deliver that to the muscles, and then they can make more ATP, and then you're going to be better able to run away or fight the bear. Okay, and then what about your energy stores? So would sympathetic stimulation cause you to build up your energy stores or cause you to break them down? So hopefully you said that you would break them down because you want to break down your glycogen stores, break down your triglyceride stores, and release those nutrients in the blood, and then get those nutrients to your muscles so then you can make ATP, so then you can run away or fight the bear. Okay, and then what about GI and urinary functions? So sympathetic stimulation would decrease both of those. So if you think about it, if the bear is after you, you don't have time to drop your pants and go to the bathroom. Okay, so sympathetic stimulation will decrease GI motility. And then it also decreases the kidneys from making urine and also helps inhibit urination as well. Now there is a reflex that strong emotion, because sometimes when you get really scared, you can, pee your pants. And that's the limbic system doing that. Okay, so there's a reflex that can do that. But after that happens, then you won't urinate, okay? All right, what about pupil size? Do you think you would dilate your pupils or constrict your pupils? So you would dilate your pupils. And that's because you can let more light in to your eyes, and then you can see the bear better and see what he's doing, okay? All right, what about tear and saliva production? Well, sympathetic stimulation is going to decrease both of those. Okay, and if you've ever been really scared, you might have remembered that you got a really dry mouth, and also you would decrease your tear production as well. And so you kind of think about this, that you want to look tough for the bear. You don't want to be crying and drooling, and the bear will just laugh at you and eat you if you look like that. Okay, so kind of remember that. All right, so I definitely would know all these because it will be pretty easy for me on the exam to ask, what would happen with sympathetic stimulation, which of these would be true, and maybe I had, heart rate increases, that would be the right answer, okay? So make sure you know what happens with sympathetic stimulation to the body. All right, parasympathetic stimulation. This is rest and digest. So the bear goes away and now you can relax and maybe have your lunch now, okay? So what's going to happen to your heart rate now that the bear is gone? So it'll decrease, won't it? Because you no longer have to run away or fight, you're just resting, okay? So you don't have to pump as much blood around. And then blood pressure is also going to decrease because you don't need to be having as much blood flowing around either. And then what about the airways, the bronchioles in your lungs? Is parasympathetic stimulation going to cause bronchodilation or bronchoconstriction? So hopefully you said that the bronchioles will constrict because you're just resting and you don't need to get as much oxygen into your lungs, so they'll constrict. Okay, and then what about GI and urinary functions? So parasympathetic stimulation will cause both of those to increase because now that the bear is gone, yeah, you got time to go to the bathroom. And if you're digesting, parasympathetic stimulation will increase GI motility, and parasympathetic stimulation will also tell the kidneys, hey, start producing more urine, and yeah, go ahead and urinate if you need to, okay? All right, what about pupil size? Would parasympathetic stimulation cause the pupils to dilate or constrict. So it would cause them to constrict because the bear's gone and you don't need to let as much light in to see what the bear is doing, so we'll constrict the pupils. And then what about tear and saliva production? So parasympathetic stimulation would cause both of those to increase. Okay, so now that the bear's gone, now you can cry and drool and be a mess because the bear's not around to see you. Okay, so you'll increase tear production, and you're also going to increase saliva production, which makes sense because if you're eating and digesting food, you want to produce more saliva.